Hi, I'm Amy Shannon from Amy's Bookshelf Reviews. Are you an author looking for your next book review? Feel free to look at my website and put in a request. If you're a reader and you're looking for the next great read, I have a lot of hidden gems just waiting to be announced to the world. So go to my website, amysbookshelfreviews.com, and see where it takes you. Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Sit back and listen to interviews, discussion about books, and anything else literary. There's always something or someone new on the show. Good evening, listeners. Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Behind the books, honest voices, real stories. I'm Amy Shannon, and tonight we step into the living past, resonant histories, because every life deserves to be heard. Together we'll uncover stories that breathe beyond the page, weaving memory and history into conversation. You never know what the echoes will find, so let's begin. Hi, listeners. This is a new segment starting in 2026. It will be the second episode on the second Sunday of the month, following the episodes, the story time for all ages. I have been for quite a while working on doing local history and family history. In 2023, I did a lot of research because I was inspired by the research I was doing for a fictional book, The Forsaken. It's a short story book. And it was the first book that I wrote that took place actually in my hometown. I live in upstate New York, and I live in the Ballston Spa area. And I was always interested in history. When I wrote the book, The Forsaken, the main character, she was a historian. And that was part of what she was part of her life. So I needed to brush up on my local history. So I did that. I did research, online, real books, libraries, actually going in person, even doing my own version of a cemetery tour, which that's something that I really like to do. So I did a lot of research. And then in 2024, I published the book, Ballstown. And it is one of those books that when I finished it, I was drawn to the people in it. And I noticed that when I just really loved doing the research and finding information about people that lived, 100, 200 years ago, and how they started my hometown. And I call it my hometown. I moved around a lot as a kid, but in the capital region of New York State. But like my mother, she always thought Boston was her home. And when we finally moved there when I was 13, it became our hometown. And even when I grew up and got married a couple times and things happened, life happened, and then as soon as I could, I moved my sons and we moved back to the Ballston Spa area, and that's where, even when we've moved, we've stayed within the area. And I don't know, it's like, I really enjoy learning about people and also, kind of getting to know them. And, also, I know I keep saying also, but, doing some of it was the lack of information that drove me to really want to do what I could to find out about certain people, especially women. There is this one woman in the book, in the Ballstown Community of History, Friends, Neighbors, and Lingering Spirits, and that is available. I just republished it because I had noticed there was a couple minor errors or typos in the book, so I just republished it, and it is available in paperback and hardcover now. So there's that kind of that is out there, and I just finished writing, and I'm in the end process of editing and having people read it and things like that. And I'm going to release it in April of 2026, and it's called The Reminiscences of Ballstown, Echoes and Whispers of Forgotten Legacies. It is this book is about people. It's about individuals, and it's about their family. It's about women who, even if they're not even barely a footnote, that I was able to find some information on. And one of my, I talked about having been inspired by one of the women. And so her name is Lucretia Booth. And she was an advocate for education. It was like her mother, Betsy Colt Foote. And back then, it was 1800s, that Betsy wanted her daughter, Lucretia, to have a great education. Not like what the education they were giving women at the time, but an education that was comparable to her male counterparts. Because back then, women, you got married, you had children, and you worked your butt off. Or if you didn't get married, you only could get a job as a school teacher, a secretary, maybe someone's assistant. You couldn't, if you were single, you could own your own property. If you inherited it, you couldn't just go out and buy your own property. If you were married, or if you had property and you got married, whatever you owned became your husband's and was no longer yours. So the Footes really wanted to give the best education for their daughter, and they did. Ebenezer was Betsy's husband, Lucretia's father. At the urging of his wife, they created a school for girls. It was originally the Union School in Albany, and it was a all-girls school that gave them education in math and science, art appreciation, English and reading, and all those things that were, the males were learning as well. And that was what's really important. So Lucretia had the best education that she could possibly have during that time. And then she married Libæus, and he was a partner. He looked at his wife as a partner in the relationship, an equal partnership, not where she had to do all the work and, everything was his. Unfortunately, the laws back then were the same. Lucretia decided that she wanted her children and other girls in the area to have the type of education that she had without them having to, travel so far away to Albany. I mean, this is, horse and carriage and things like that. Right now, if I drove to Albany in a car, it would take me about a half hour to 45 minutes. It could take a couple days, for a horse-drawn carriage to take, children to school. Plus, it wasn't, a public school, or they could go to what they called a common school, and that was a public school, the name for public school, and the education for boys and girls were different, whether they went to they went to a common school. Some were, self-taught at home. I'm sure Lucretia not only, taught her children at home, but also through urging her husband, Fabius, he created a Balsam Spa female seminary school. And back then, seminary referred to school. It's now, if you hear that term, it's more like related to a pastoral or a religious type of school. But seminary is just the word that they use. And that school lasted for about 3 years. And it helped women in the area get a good education. They were learning more than just etiquette and, how to walk properly or how to be a secretary. There was a lot of things that women did when they were married. A lot of times they were the bookkeeper. They had to be the one who budgeted. The husband worked and he earned wages. The wife, unless the husband allowed it, she stayed home and she took care of the children. And Lucretia, she had 12 children, but several of her children had passed away at a very young age. And that also is something that was common. And I hate saying that it was common, but it was that a lot of children died young, and usually it was from diseases that now you could get a vaccine for or a cure. But, kids were dying from the flu. They were dying from scarlet fever, tuberculosis, which they used to refer to as consumption, because it basically consumed your lungs. And it's just so incredible and sad, and but these women, they still had to do their job as a wife and mother while mourning the loss of their child or watching their child slowly wither away. But Lucretia was one of those women that I can just imagine that, she did her, I don't want to say due diligence, but she endured and moved forward. But I'm sure she had quiet moments when she was doing something that she liked to do by herself. And, and she would probably take the time to, mourn quietly, after, something like that. I can't imagine. But she continued on, and she had more children, and some grew up and some did not, but some did. And there are descendants out there, still alive, and I found that was wonderful. It was, I did an article on the Lucretia booth for the Saratoga County Historical Society back in July of this year, or I should say 2025. And then I wrote another article about the Ballston Spa law school that they had, and that was just published in November of 2025. The article I had about Lucretia got, I had to shorten it. And when I was doing research for my current book, I sent an email to the Ballston Spa Village Cemetery Association asking why Lucretia and her husband weren't listed on their website as notable. And it was that email that opened up. Not only did I find and get connected with Lucretia's descendant, but also a descendant of another family that I was also doing research on, the Curtises. And I was just, it was exciting and so impressed. And I just was so excited. I had to tell people, and people were like, yeah, whatever. But I have a second cousin, my second cousin Bill, and he's a historian for Schenectady County. I am not officially, I don't work for the county or anything, but I am still a local historian. I do research, I double check everything, I triple check things. And one thing that I like to do also, I mentioned earlier that I do my own cemetery tours. Actually, if you go to my website, for my company, Essence Enterprises, is essenceenterpriseus.com. You can find out more about being a local historian and other projects that I work on. Everything that I do that is outside of Amy's Bookshop Reviews goes on that website. But it's still me. It's who I am. So, you can see the research I've done. I was able to find old books that were scanned in, and because they were out of print, and I put them together on my website. I went to cemeteries and I did recordings, and I took a lot of photos. And as I'm going through doing I call it a cemetery tour of my own, there are times that I came across a stone, and I don't want to say it spoke to me, but it kind of drew me there, and so I made a note of it, or I took a photo, or both, and that's how. And then later I did research on those people, and I had a list, and it was growing, of the individuals that I wanted to honor, the families that I wanted to honor, and also in my book I have a section that honors all of the children of the people that I've researched, and are included in this book. I have a memorial dedicated to them at the end of the book, because every life and every death tells a story, and I'm one that wants to share the story with the world. I don't think people should be forgotten just because they lived 300 years ago, 200 years ago. So with my new book coming out, it's coming out, like I said, April 6th. And I hope that people find it to be not just informational, but kind of entertaining as well. I don't want it to read like a textbook. I don't want it to just be bullet points, and I want it to be stories about people. And and this one, where I could not find photos, and it's very hard even for to find photos of men or families. It's extremely hard to find photos of the women pioneers and settlers. And so I used an AI to help me create silhouettes of those people. So it's their shadow is being honored, and that's what that stands for. So just to kind of reflect a little bit, this segment is dedicated to history. It'll be local history information that I want to share with people. I'm hoping to maybe be able to interview other historians or other authors that are also writing books about history. And I would love to, anyone, if you are doing, I don't care if you live in Russia or France or whatever, and if you're writing history about your local history or, world history, you can go to my, podcast, page and, schedule a pre-recording. And if your time zone interferes with what my schedule says, just get me an email and we'll work something out together. I make allowances for time zones and, people that are like 12 hours ahead of me. So they're not inconvenienced or unable to be on the show just because of availability. So I have set availability, and that changes when things happen, or sometimes I'll add an extra day or whatever. But I always do my best to make allowances for people who want to be interviewed. So if you're a historian, if you are an author of nonfiction history, I would love to hear from you. And I think that that would just be just wonderful to have you on the show for that thing. So, just in a little bit of reflection, I'm going to read you the introduction of my book. It's kind of like it's like the book's description. It's called Welcome to the Past, Reminiscences of Ballstown, Echoes and Whispers of Forgotten Legacies. It's not just a history book. It is a walk through memory, a quiet act of listening to the lives that shaped the community and those nearly lost to time. Ingrained in generations of cemetery walks and guided by the author's deep commitment to reminiscence, this book brings together archival research, family lore, and poetic reflection. It honors the prankster sons and the dedicated daughters, the women whose names barely made the records, and all the children who never took a breath. Some left behind headstones, others left only whispers, all left a mark. Through silhouettes where photos are missing and carefully linked memorials on Find a Grave, the author restores connection across generations. Each story is a thread in the hidden tapestry of Ballstown's past, woven from the stories of the lives and death of people that leave a mark, even if it's a grave marker, headstone, gravestone, a passing article in the newspaper, under deaths with a simple 2-line obituary, or one with a deserving obituary honoring their lives. This is a book for those that believe that every life matters, that memory is an act of love, and that even the quietest voices deserve to be heard. It is a tribute to lives lived and unlived, a lantern held up to the shadows, and an invitation to walk beside the author in honoring the legacies etched in forgotten corners. And as I said, every life, every death has a story to tell, with the silent echoes of legacies. And that is just the start of my book. And I have a lot of research that didn't even go into the book. And I'm hoping to make a series. I wanted to do an individual, like some of them are what they call biographical sketches. And, it's basically a sketch with words about a person's life. Some of the old ones that I have read in the past were about men, prominent men in the town, men that had status and, whether it was glorified status or, they were just, they were businessmen that were successful. But they had great ties to their community and they didn't think that they were better than somebody else just because of their status. And that is also important. Some people don't realize that what they're doing every day is something that is important and noteworthy. Every life that has been lived, every death that has died, those people, all of us, deserve to be remembered, have a legacy. Sometimes, and eventually bloodlines end. There's no more males to carry on, or even females still using their maiden name to carry on their name. But that happens, and sometimes it's not about just having a bloodline. It's about just continuing to share and tell stories, and then those people that you tell the stories to can tell others, and so forth. And hopefully, we won't be forgotten. I always wanted to be or feel like I was important, not to the point where like, oh, I have to be famous, I have to be rich, which would be nice, but I'm not. But I have a purpose, and I wanted to make sure that what my purpose is important work. And I think I have several purposes, and I do my best to do that for helping authors, helping other people, just being kind, sharing information, telling stories. Just waking up in the morning is a blessing for me. So I don't want to end up a footnote. Maybe it'd be nice to have a little line in somebody's appendix later on, in a book, not their appendix. Oh, but sorry, I'm terrible with puns. Actually, I'm not. My kids think I am. Anyway, thank you, audience, for listening. Please follow this podcast on Spotify. If you wish to be on the show, just go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/podcast and schedule your pre-recording. I'm Amy Shannon. Be safe, be well, and always be kind. Tune in here again next week for another tantalizing discussion. Thank you for listening to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Hi, this is Amy from Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Don't forget to tune in every Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. You never know who's going to be on the show or what we're going to talk about. There's some new friends in the literary world, and I'm here to help read them out.